Oswald being inducted into the military at a certain height and then being a different height later, after the assassination and what have you, which caused some, was it just a clerical error or, and maybe there was
his own mother claimed that it wasn't Lee buried in his grave; it was somebody else.
Which, and like I said, it's just, the whole thing surrounding that. I mean, Carrie Thornley as a character, being involved in that and having that prior experience with Oswald and in the Marines and everything like that, just, it's just a really, if somebody didn't really try to take the time to look at all of the threads that go out and try to make some connections between them, there would be so much of history would be just completely unknown to people. And even looking at it from a parapolitical point of view, there are people that have particular views on who was behind the assassination and who wasn't. And, like other dogmatic positions, they hold rigidly to their points of view. Some of the researchers do anyway. And, but looking at the other aspects and realize that, like with 9/11, too, I think there are two perfect examples of the kind of thing that the powers that be, if you want to call them that, the people working behind the scenes, what they do with any particular case that is really, really big like this, they just flood so much information out there that you could make a case for just about anybody killing Kennedy or just about anybody being behind 9/11. I mean, you could have evidence for it, too. That's the thing that's the kicker. I mean, there's so many things put out that you could really, you could make the case for anything. And I think that's part of the overall strategy for people that orchestrate these kinds of things, that if it's something particularly massive and traumatic, like the killing of the president, in broad daylight, driving down a street, or 9/11, the destruction of the World Trade Center towers, that in order to cover up the truth, they give you too much information and point the fingers in too many different directions. You can't possibly ever know the truth, and that's really what that's my bottom line on the Kennedy assassination. You're never going to have an answer. It's never going to be satisfactory. It's never going to solve it completely, no matter what kind of information comes out.
Yeah, the Kennedy assassination was really the first big conspiracy I got interested in and started reading the books, and initially I was just pissed off. It was outraged, he was killed like a dog in the streets, for everybody to see, and there was an obvious conspiracy behind it. And as you got deeper into the thing, it was exactly like you said, you had all these competing conspiracies, and they all made sense, and there were different players involved and overlapping players to the point where you were so confused that finally you have to step back and say, yeah, he was assassinated by a conspiracy, but it's been so muddied at this point, we'll never get at the bottom of it.
Exactly, and that's kind of where my research ended, because you could just keep going on and on forever, and like you said, every one of them is plausible. I've not seen a decent book or a decent theory put forward by someone, not talking about just the ramblings of some crazy person, even though that might have some validity too.
Yeah,
but looking at them, even glossing over them, you can see that they have evidence, they have support, and if that's the case for everything, then you can't ever come to any conclusions. So
well, it's like E. Howard Hunt. His name comes up time and again. He made a deathbed confession, and it seems like he was involved at some level, but was he just a low-level player? Was he what a high-level player? Was, you know, where exactly does he fit into the puzzle with all the other players, from the French Mafia and the Italian Mafia and the CIA and LBJ and yeah.
Yep, you could just go on and on forever. You probably get tired of talking about the Manson family after all this time with your book being out, but I wanted to ask you something about that. But before I do, I just want to note that we're here on 1/11/11, and we passed through our 11:11 p.m. here on the East Coast. I assume you're out on the West Coast?
Yes.
So we just had our 1/11/11/11/11, and I wondered if you had any thoughts on the recurrent theme of 11:11 or 111, or you know, the idea of these symbolic numbers.
No. I have, you know, I've heard there's something to the 11111, but there's so many things nowadays. It's like it's something I didn't really look too deeply into. I don't know what the significance is. It's kind of like similar to that magic date in 2012, or something's supposed to happen, or I don't. Andy Colvin is somebody you talk about regarding this phenomenon.
Yeah,
he's all over it.
Well,
so,
I call Andy the. Go ahead.
I have no insights into the relevance of all this 11/11 stuff, but yeah, Andy is some type of shaman.
I like to refer to Andy Colvin as like our generation's Charles Fort, because he's just a vacuum of knowledge. He sucks everything up.
Yeah.
So I definitely enjoy the stuff that he puts out, and so I'm looking forward to talking to him in the future. But I just thought I'd throw that one out there. But
what's the deal with this 11/11?
Well, the idea, I don't know. I think it's like a synchronicity kind of thing with the 11/11, because I have a friend of mine who frequently tells me that you know, he every time he looks at the clock, it's 11/11. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know, you see the 11/11 symbology represent a lot of other different ways, and I hear those kind of stories from people, and I think it has to do with sort of like a synchronistic kind of thing. Myself, I don't know. It's kind of like with words and numbers. I think that there's a certain kind of like power in them. There's a certain kind of like I don't know whether it has to do with like a projection of your consciousness or whatever that we put into words and numbers, that they have like you know, a direct effect on your consciousness in a certain way, because you know, they represent concepts that are sometimes so involved and deep that it's just a word, but yet it am I making sense? It kind of like has a...
Exactly, and I was talking about different materials that were passed on to me, and some of this stuff is Robert Anton Wilson-related materials, and in one place he wrote about the 23 Enigma,
Oh, yes.
Basically, he admitted, I don't think he ever admitted this publicly, but that was basically they were floating a balloon out there to see if this would take off, this whole 23 thing, if they started talking about it, and people would start looking for it, and it would show up in odd places. And exactly what you're describing as a thought projection is what Wilson, I think he believed what the whole 23 enigma was about, that people invested a certain amount of energy into the number, or that it had some mystical significance, and then the more people look for something, the more that they become aware and see it. It's like, I don't know if this is a good analogy, because I think the Beatles were actually hiding a bunch of weird stuff and messages, but that could be one explanation for all the whole Paul is dead thing, is that people started looking for stuff and things started appearing. Actually, I think the Beatles were planning stuff, but with the whole number 23 enigma, I think it was something that Discordians threw out there to see if people would pick up and run with and invest it with its own power. And perhaps that's, like you said, what's happening with the 1111 thing. Consciousness is a powerful tool, especially if a number of people, their strength in numbers, are focusing their thoughts on a particular object or number or whatever.
Yeah, and I believe that, and I think there's a strong sense of that. It'll be very interesting to hear that the 23 enigma was something that was like sort of projected into society, and it sort of became its own self-perpetuating thing. It's kind of fascinating, really, when you think about it. I mean, it even came to have its own movie with the number 23 with who was in that, James Carey? Yeah. Which is a really bizarre movie.
Look for a future book by Adam Gorightly that will address this topic.
All right, very good. I'll definitely look forward to it. I'll definitely look forward.
That's one of the things. You've been around the world of the paranormal, conspiracy theories, and predictions, and these type of things. It's like, here's another whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
After a while, it looks like the 2012 thing. Yeah, right. If anyone wants to put some money on that, I'll take them up.
Oh, yeah. I'll throw in the pool with you, because I think that's a bunch of nonsense. Yeah, of
course, you can't lose if the world does end on 2012. Then whatever.
That's true, but you don't have to you don't have to tell them that, they let them figure it out afterwards.
Right.
If we stand to gain some money on it, I'll definitely throw in the pool with you, because I think that's nonsense, really. But anyway, we get off on that little sidetrack there. I did want to ask you your thoughts. Go ahead.
I was just going to say before we move on. On the other hand, if people invest enough consciousness and thought into something, then maybe they could make that happen, whatever that would be.
Well, that's sort of the basis of ritual magic. I mean, and even sex magic, for that matter. It's investing a certain amount of energy. It's investing a certain amount of your own self into whatever it is you want to create, and obviously that involves words and numbers and that sort of thing, because obviously that's the way you convey from your mind to whatever the idea that you're trying to do. So I mean, that's the underlying basis for that entire ritualistic system. So you can't I mean, you have to acknowledge that's a real thing there.